I am thinking in all of the people who may be watching us from all over the world. In fact, this activity of the World Press Freedom it's been quite interesting for many people. There are more than 30,000 people working, 3,000 people participating here in GAM and in some other places nearby. There are really interesting activities over here. The one we're going to start right now, it is called Moving the Indigenous Voices into the very center of the scenario, the core of it. It's a challenge of their own languages and the dispute for stigmatization. It is a really difficult and painful topic. History of Latin America tells us that there has been a lot of blood being uh, over there defending their land and their identity. Because there's no question that the ones who are there defending nature, which is one of the main axes of this meeting, we're asking and requesting for a press for the planet. And of course, the ones over here are indigenous people. We have representatives of mass media and indigenous people from Honduras, Mexico, Argentina, and Chile. Unfortunately, two of the speakers of this panel could not make it here because of different reasons. But they're going to be, if technology helps us, with us virtually. I will start by introducing Miriam Vargas from Mexico. Miriam, she's from Puebla. She's an expert in radio broadcasting, community radio broadcasting. She's a journalist as well. She's also a presenter. And she's a defender of the earth and territories. Tell us about your experience, please. Good morning. Thank you very much for this invitation. And I want to thank everyone here. The reality here in Mexico, it is no different from the one in some other countries. We are in those territories and extractivism. It is a serious situation there. There is water scarcity. We're in kind of a war for water and air pollution. We are therefore emphasizing, and forests are being cut. So that's the reality we're living there in Mexico. We are in the very core of the country nearby the Popotapetl volcano. This is a zone which so far it is rich in water, land, and forests, and therefore we have been threatened as communities by companies because the huge corporations are there, and we know the whole list of corporations from the USA, Australia, Canada, with mining industry, Spanish with energy projects. Fracking is also something which is affecting our territory. Therefore, as a community, we have decided to get organized in order to continue with this tradition of being autonomous, in order to self-determine what happens in our territory, and that means to take the right, such as the expression of freedom for speech in order to talk about these problems, in order to report and inform what's happening and which are the consequences of this, which is coming to our territories. And as we well know, corporations, huge companies have done a huge work in order to say and to implement life models in order to have development models which can deceive us and therefore leading us towards a viewpoint of the earth where exploitation, where genocide, extractivism may be seen as a good practice. And we believe that that is not really good practice, that he has brought death, destruction. He has brought plenty of misery to our communities and displacement as well. In the midst of this, we remember an historic moment in 1894 when the Zapatist army rises and says, as a community, we have our rights. as indigenous people, we're going to fight for the Mexican state to acknowledge them. But it happens that from that moment, 1994, what's happening is a series of betrayals to these San Andres agreements. And therefore, we are many peoples getting together in the National Congress, indigenous one, and we have determined to start to take action. We need to make these rights be respected. And the Mexican state, well, is not supporting us. And in that sense, in Cholula, in 1994, we have determined our territories, and we have included the media. In the case of Cholula, in 1994, we started a story of a radio broadcasting office, which is now working in the radio electric spectrum. And after a dispute, that's what happened. Because in Mexico, we'll have the right for using the radio electrical spectrum only 10% of 100%. We're talking about 8 communitary broadcasting radios, indigenous one, the only ones in the air. But the thousands of broadcasters which are not with a concession or with a permit, well, right now they're being pursued. There's violence against them. Some members are being taken into jail. So the work we're doing, it is to reivindicate our right for freedom of speech, and we want to be a place where we can find a proper discourse and speech of our communities, where we also can tell why we want to defend the territory, why we want the air to be used for sowing or the forest to be there, preserving lives, birds, and different ecosystems. So for us, this has been so important. I mean, to put this at the table, but it has brought plenty of risks. Nowadays, our partner here, well, we are survivors of a series of threats, constant ones against our lives, the work we do, because every day all of these companies and corporations are threaten us because of the work we're doing, because we want to convey the real information of what's happening and the consequences of this extractivism, these activities, everything which is happening over there. In the case of women, there's a serious situation there because over here there is patriarchal and chauvinist violence, which is from corporations, but also it is executed by governments and administrations. In my personal case, I have been attacked physically, psychologically. They have even threatened me in my place. And this is a situation that I can say that I am a survivor. But there are some women who have gone through situations even worse than the ones that I have gone through. So we want some spaces to tell about this. This is happening on a daily basis. There are journalists being murdered and disappeared in jail in Mexico. So that's a reality that we're going through. And we are every day trying to find this reivindication of the communitary media. We want it to advance in the sense that we can determine over our territory, we want to have our communication media, mass media. We want to decide what's the type of development that we want in our peoples, because that is also important for us. We as communicators, we convey information of what's the project or the mega project that these corporations are bringing into our territories. Because corporations are now talking about the Escazú agreement, they're seeking for and looking for to legitimate some fake consultations, indigenous consultations, where they're saying, this is the information, and this is all we had to tell about the project, so please let us in over or into your territory. So the goal of the indigenous consultation is basically to expropriate and to extract what they need and what they want. And in the end, they're not really asking if we want that or not, or if you want or accept the project. So there's an important role of these community broadcasting stations because it is our duty to report and to inform what truly happens in these places. Let's see, Miriam, if we have a little bit, some more time at the very end, so you can add some more information, or maybe for the audience here can ask you some questions. In case of you having any questions, you can also write them down. Now we'll try to get connected with Leila Noriega Segarra. She's in this triangle of lithium in the northern part of Chile. She's a journalist, Aymara journalist from Arica, director of AINE broadcast system or station. She's also spreading the human rights of indigenous people. And she's trying with her work to promote and boost the plurality of voices in the northernmost part of the country. Leila, you're most welcome. Can you hear us, Leila? Well then, the floor is all yours. What can you tell us about your experience as a communicator in that zone which is so conflicted where taking care of the environment, it is so relevant? Can you hear me okay? Well then, I wrote my intervention not to. She's now speaking in Aymara language. I want to thank UNESCO and the audience here for this invitation. And because of health issues, I couldn't make it to Santiago. We are not a radio broadcasting station with an antenna. We're a small indigenous community. I am part of it, but we're journalists, we're women, we're indigenous women, and we're defenders of human rights. We're convinced that journalism it is a tool for the social transformation. We want to visibilize different voices. In that space, human space, we're nearby the borderline, nearby the ocean and Bolivia. These are territories that were included or won by Chile after the Pacific War, and we're almost 100 years away from that situation after the treaty that it was signed in with Peru and Bolivia. Therefore, Chile, it is connecting these areas into the country. There are indigenous people there, and there's a socio-cultural difference, and as a consequence, they have eliminated the indigenous languages in our territory, and there is fewer population, where radio, which is free, radio broadcasting station, which is free. The Chilean state, it is not respecting us, just like in dictatorship. Therefore, we expect the state to assume the reparation of, and some policies of non-reparation, basically for us. In this context, they invite us to have a conversation about the challenges that we have on a daily basis from indigenous communication, production of our own language, and the dispute of this segmentation. In this context of global climate crisis. So here we are resisting this situation together with people, communities, and different organizations who trust us in order to visibilize their voices, to demand or ask for the rights, which is freedom of speech, freedom of the press, that media can also or should also be respected, and these people should also be respected. We have the same value as Sokimich or authorities, and they have a TV program in the morning, and they're talking about the good things of their activity. I'm just wondering about that, considering different agreements, UN for indigenous people. So they're indigenous people, and they're not respecting us. Our languages are getting lost as well. So we need to decolonize journalism as well. In our radio, we talk about this, all of these topics, and we have worked really hard with plenty of people, different women, indigenous women. We have podcasts. We self-manage different activities. We also apply for some funds. We do many activities in order to manage all of this activity, because there's also some activities that need to be funded. It is something complex. We also work in different lines related to what I just mentioned, what has been mentioned, and what's happening in Mexico. The idea is to visualize what happens in different territories when they are affected by extractivism. These, of course, are activities which affect indigenous territories. And therefore, it is a really hard and difficult situation because extractivism has so many different resources in this lithium triangle. And many authorities are silent, and they have silent journalists, lawyers, and more people. So extractivism, it is also a threat for the freedom of press and freedom of speech. And it's affecting us, indigenous people. We have been affected by this El Pacifico war, and which in the end was salt pepper war. And this is happening in the northern part of the country. We're far away from Santiago, and our zone is being polluted. We are having issues with water supply. There's cancer as well. And our social life is also being affected. And unfortunately, in the current administration, which is ecologist and feminist, we have been some death as well, especially in our indigenous territory. And we're talking about this national statute for lithium. And by now, it is being sold to the best bidder, willing to explode the sellers. And we have had conversations with some specialists, and the sellers, salt flats, are there, and companies are having meetings in order to get into an agreement, but they are not really respecting indigenous people. Those salt flats are thermometers, natural thermometers, and if we eliminate them, the temperature of the planet is going to change. And lithium, it is water mining, and we're going to get out of water. Flora and fauna living in the systems are living in extreme conditions. So there's a whole relationship, and it is something which is a natural heritage for us. We have talked about all of these topics here, and it is not being, they're not really paying attention to us. This fake news and the wonderful things they say about this green economy, and that an electromobility seems to solve everything. But we as indigenous people, we know that the ones who are going to make money here are these huge companies. They're going to be the big winners. Why? Just to continue building more cars. And they're going to terminate these Andean territories. So when you go to these different salt flats, I mean, they're being murdered. And I just want to mention what happens with indigenous people, freedom of the speech, and climate change. Everything is related there. And there's a relationship with this historical context, which has to do with the treaty with Bolivia and Peru. This treaty with Bolivia allows that trucks with hazardous minerals come from the high mountains up until the ocean. And those are Andean territories. There have been 3 hazardous villages. And nowadays the Socoroma community in Putre, in Arica, Parinacota, are without any drinking water. And drinking water supply, it is a human right. So now water is being polluted with oil, and they do not really know the consequences of that. And the government has not done anything about the other spillage. And there's a treaty with Peru in 1999, because in the borderline between Chile and Peru, there is this company polluting waters of Andean communities and lakes. There are documentaries, letters, many things have been done for the Chilean state to do something about it. And nothing's been done because they are still polluting that water, but they're also killing animals. Alpacas and llamas are being killed. Those are the consequences of that. And the dangers, that's where we live, which is invisibilized by the media. So they just show us dancing as if we were happy people, and they say there's no conflict with us. They only consider the conflict with Mapuche people. And I also wanted to mention, with freedom of the press, I also want to mention the historical debt of the Chilean state, which is El Clarín newspaper that was eliminated during dictatorship. So we invite you to get to know our case. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leila. Leila Noriega Seraga from iNeed Radio from Arica, Chile. She was mentioning the criminalization and persecution of previous participants and how they've become stigmatized or as folkloric, right? As utilized. Just like as in Argentina, it's a constitutional right to our territory that we have. And now we're going to go and speak with Daniel Salazar. He's a Lonco from Aluminia, from the province of Neuquén in the Argentinian Patagonia. I would say that Aluminia's experience, and Neuquén in general, is an experience that is intercultural, and it carries dialogue and respect that contrasts to that's what's happening in other countries, but in other provinces of the same country of Argentina. And that's not because there aren't conflict zones, but even in Vaca Muerta, it's a hydrocarbon area, has a lot of conflict. But there's also dialogue, and there's the will to respect the identity, cultural identity of the Mapuche people, without stigmatizing, without criminalizing, as what generally happens in hegemonic press in Argentina, and as we can hear from the provincial authorities. Daniel Salazar. First, we're going to listen to what you have to say, and we're going to see a video that you have prepared for us, and that production has been kind enough to load at the last minute. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, UNESCO, for inviting me, and thank you, Miriam. As here, our colleague was just saying, all of the indigenous people all over the world, we have the same struggle. I belong to the Mapuche people. I am the Lonco of my Mapuche community in Igual, in Neuquén province in Argentina. And around 1995, we started a struggle of reivindicating our land rights. We had our self-determination as our slogan, to free ourselves from companies and media and the political sector. Mass media tried to confuse people, telling them that we said self-determination, that we were trying to say that we wanted a separate state, that we wanted to be independent as a nation, that we wanted to not conform to the Constitution. In the Article 70, we are recognized as a people in the indigenous nation. We started a struggle under that flag, using as a tool the 179 agreement of the we started vindicating our land, and that still belongs to us. It was a very uneven struggle, that we had political powers against us, media against us, but we were very sure that we were on the right path. We never used violence, and we got very far. Nonetheless, when they started telling us that we were guerrilla movements, that we were in contact with guerrilla movements, and that we were going to use weapons against the Argentinian people, all that they found throughout the years was dialogue. That's all we had. Through these struggles, vindicating our rights, there were different lawsuits against us. I have around 17, and as well as in other loncos. They told us what it costs to fight for our land, for our life. From 1994, 1995 to 2002, there were difficult times. We were extremely persecuted. We were censored. We were censored by media, from the biggest to the smallest, to the most local media sources. That's why we thought at one moment, we formed with a group of young people, with a lot of struggle. We founded a radio called FM Aritrubuñefle, where I am one of the directors. We have 4 directors. And why does it have 4? Because we never wanted to lose our collective soul that we have as a community, where everything has to do with everybody. It's not a vertical structure. It's collective. So we have 4 directors, and I was chosen to be one of them. Why? Because we were censored, because big media was against us, and the only way for our brothers and sisters to be communicated among us, and not listening to this mass media, we had the need to found this radio to communicate, to come together, and also to go against this big lie that was being held against us. After a lot of struggle, we won a lot of fights. With the Aluminia people, the intendant, the government leader, we started working towards intercultural government. And I want to thank Gabriel Alamo. He's here. He's a representative of the province. And the current representative, he's also here. And Natalia Angelino, who is also a member of the government. It wouldn't have been possible. Everything that we were capable of reaching. What we wanted was the possibility to speak, to have a dialogue, to explain what we wanted. We didn't want a separate state or a separate government or a separate sovereignty. We wanted to be heard. We want to have our rights respected. Just like when we went fought for Article 63, that we struggled, we won, and we won, and we were also recognized in the right. So we were able to vindicate these rights. We knew that it wasn't easy, but we had to work and have the tolerance to continue with this proposal, with this idea of intercultural relations that is real, that respects also the environment. This is one of the key topics. Throughout the years, we've been working with a intercultural health system. We inaugurated it 2 years ago, And 80% of the people that work in that health center, are Mapuche. In Neuquén, we were able to have the government recognize our medicine alongside Western medicine. We work a lot in education. We have Mapuche educators in each primary school, elementary school, so that our language isn't lost. And if there's something that we do value, is our religion and our culture. That's why we've been working tirelessly. And thanks to that, we've also worked alongside non-Mapuche people to have a protocol that was also decreed by the governor of Neuquén. That is now a law that was passed by the Congress, and that says that any kind of business that's going to happen in our territory, we should be consulted, or the project can't go further, can't be carried out. So we won a series of struggles for Mapuches, and it also applies to other indigenous peoples. The important thing is that we have these rights and that people know that they have them. In 2023, we assisted to an agreement to a national and provincial meeting where we founded in a government building as a Pehuenche people and Limine. We founded a space where we could gather all of the communities that have community radios so that we can generate content that allows for people, not only for our own people, according to our religion, our identity, so they don't lose their values, so they realize that we are present, we are here, that interculturality is a reality, that it can be done. So not only do we need to document and inform these processes, but to tell the world that there is a possibility that we can live in a better world, where we have respect, where we are tolerant. Daniel, I'm going to propose that we see the video now, and then we'll end. At the heart of the Patagonia in Neuquén, we have the Aluminia community. Here in Wallmapu, in this land of incomparable beauty,
presentamos el Centro Intercultural de Producción Transmedia Aoquín Mulandúa Bucap, un espacio único en el mundo que busca construir puentes entre las culturas que conviven en Aluminé. Un territorio en el que se respira diversidad cultural, en las escuelas, en los barrios o en el primer hospital intercultural de la Argentina.
Communication is the bridge that joins these places, joins us instead of dividing us. Aluminé knows its story and reaffirms it every day. Its collective identity, intercultural identity. In this process, communication brings together the voices of its protagonists and gives it a speaker. From its design, the Intercultural Center has had an impact in promoting cultural diversity and has looked to strengthen citizen participation and indigenous community participation in media. It's a work experience. It's an experience that has developed between the governments, communities, indigenous communities, and it has amplified the voices of the community and seeks to preserve and promote native languages. Aluminé not only offers an incomparable stage for this project, but also allows us to have the opportunity to learn about its cultural and natural heritage with the world. This is only the beginning of a voyage into a transmedial future where intercultural communication is the norm and not the exception. We've developed several documentaries that are very beautiful. They're part of us, too. Simply to give some food for thought, as we have communicators that are committed to the environment, and officials, government officials that want to promote intercultural values and freedom of the press and expression, we will be able to contribute to a better world. Thank you so much for everything. Thank you so much to all of you. He has some fans in the audience, Daniel. That means that there are people that support the political investment, the defense of the public. Yeah, and Miriam Lewin, I am part of this movement as well. We are also supporting this movement, and we're trying to replicate it in other areas of the province. Why the province specifically? Because it's a province that is special. There's no question about that. There's a priority towards dialogue, and they're prioritizing communities, and it's a plural encounter. It's not that there isn't conflict, but there's interest in a dialogue. In provinces that nearby, there was blood spilled. It's a much more a difficult situation. And fortunately, that did not happen in Neuquén. That's why we really support them and what they're doing. We're going to Honduras now. We're going to speak with Maria Dolores Euseda Cabrera. She is I was really surprised to learn that not only is she a community journalist of Radio Dignidad, she is also a math professor. Maria Dolores, are you there? Hello. Good morning. Hello from Tolupan territory. It's lovely to be here. As you mentioned, my name is Maria Euseda, and I am part of Dignity Radio in the coordination, administration, and I'm also part of the Amplio movement. This project is part of our organization, in this Amplio organization, in terms of communication. I'm very happy to tell you that tomorrow we will be also setting up shop in a territory, in the Tolupan territory. We will also have the first program. It's going to be out on the air tomorrow in the Radio Dignidad Tumpan. In Honduras, as you well know, we've been living a difficult process. We just exited a dictatorship. A time that took the lives of many of our friends, and didn't allow us to continue through our processes. In the middle of a government that calls itself democratic socialism, we are facing several situations. And among the 9 First Nations, indigenous peoples that arrived to this territory, including the Lenca people, Miskitu, the Tolupan, Maya Cortich, which that's the most kind of well-known, and Creole, of English-speaking Black communities, all of them, we all, in general, are suffering the consequences of the process that Honduras was under for 12 years. But that still continues, generating violence, inequality within the territories in general in Honduras, but especially for indigenous peoples. Indigenous peoples in Honduras are located in the north, in the east and west part of the country. There are less indigenous peoples in the south of the country. They're distributed. Most of these peoples are struggling with communication, with topics of communications. They're really focused on strengthening and nurturing native languages. We are trying to maintain our identity as a culture. The language we continue practicing speaking our language in the Lenca people, the Tolupan, are in a process of recovering their language, their native language. And they're having a lot of difficulties. Among them is the fact that they don't have guarantees by the Honduran state that they have the right, and their fundamental rights, and the right to communicate, to access frequencies, radio frequencies, the radio spectrum. We don't have the same access as the economic powers do, be they radio, TV, etc. So all we have left is, a lot of times, is social media. That is the impact that we can manage. So our community media, we have around 35, and they're in the hands of organizations. They might be farmers, indigenous, and we are making these efforts without the support or the guarantee of the state. We are taking over the spectrum, basically, as we fight for the legitimate right as inhabitants of this territory to take over this radio frequencies, even if the state denies it. For example, Dignidad Radio, it's in the Atlantic side of Honduras. We are functioning in a free frequency. It's an open frequency. We're occupying it without having a guarantee that it will continue to be in our hands. So we're also expanding these efforts. So as I said, Tolupan Radio is opening tomorrow, because we are in one territory. We're in a Ladino or white territory. We're also opening up the possibility for the Tolupan people to have this, where they also have their own struggles in regards to territory and land rights, and in terms of land that was in the hands of people that, even though the communities and tribes, even though they have the titles to those land, to the land of land rights that are over 100 years old, they have, through processes where they've been created land rights that aren't people that inhabit those territories, that aren't indigenous people of that area. So there's been hoarding of the land and common resources like the woods, water, mineral resources. There are countless number of lawsuits against extractivists, companies, and projects. Maybe one of the most famous ones is the Lenca, the case of the Lenca people. And in other territories, like for example in the Tulupan territory, a mining company was also expelled from the territory. This company was denounced. What they wanted to do is in that territory was create a process of human trafficking of young girls. We were able to stop this company thanks to the indigenous peoples and their organization, because they were creating and they were fostering their own identity and also in understanding their rights to the land and understanding their cultural rights and everything that also implies for the country on a national level.
So maybe if you turn on...
¿Podemos terminar de escucharte? A ver ahora.
Bien, a ver si podemos llegar. Hola.
A ver si podés ir redondeando.
Hola.
Porque aparentemente hay problemas con la señal.
Bien, a ver si puedo concluir entonces.
Sí, sí.
Porque entiendo que el tiempo es corto. Bien, y mencionar, porque estamos hablando de los pueblos originarios, de los retos que tenemos en los diferentes pueblos que comparten, digamos, escuchando al resto de compañeros del pueblo mapuche, del pueblo aymara, del resto de pueblos de nuestra Vía Yala, cómo pues, digamos, la institucionalidad utiliza, más que garantiza derechos, utiliza muchas veces, folcloriza, como lo mencionaba usted misma, folcloriza, digamos, la identidad, la cultura de los pueblos, ¿verdad? Ya no quieren los pueblos, ya no queremos los pueblos seguir siendo utilizados por los gobiernos, por organizaciones. Incluso nosotros hemos sido críticos de instancias, ¿verdad? De instancias que se proclaman defensoras de los derechos de los pueblos indígenas, pero que muchas veces solo son utilizados, ¿no? Digamos, estas poblaciones. Entonces, hay grandes retos, entre ellos, por ejemplo, que se distribuyan las frecuencias de radio, las frecuencias de medios para los pueblos originarios, para las organizaciones. No solo los grupos económicos tienen derecho a manifestarse, a expresarse de la manera como lo hacen, también los pueblos originarios, y para eso están siendo utilizados los medios, digamos, comunitarios, los medios de los pueblos que nos apropiamos de ese derecho, porque hay una declaración incluso, ¿verdad?, que así lo dice. Entonces nosotros tenemos derecho también, urgimos, instamos, exigimos a los estados que nos garanticen a los pueblos el acceso a frecuencias, ¿verdad? Porque el no tener una frecuencia de la forma como lo tiene el resto, eso pone en riesgo a nuestros compañeros y compañeras. Sus vidas están en riesgo porque tienen que contar la verdad que no es conveniente para esos grupos económicos que sí tienen el derecho a los medios de comunicación, ¿verdad? Que se convierten
And that is related to countries, communities, and peoples. So, the truth being said, all of the truth must be told, and to do so, that media is being used. And we are willing to, not sometimes to the legal elements, but the legitimate rights that we have as citizens of the world and different countries. Likewise, the warranty of education, intercultural education, must be guaranteed, which truly, it shouldn't just be there stuck on paper. In Honduras, there are some initiatives, some bills, some initiatives for that, the recovery of mother tongues, culture, but that is sometimes stuck in paper, and in the end, they are not relevant for indigenous people. It is therefore necessary to rescue languages and culture, medicine, because that is something that we have been losing. Countries have been losing that due to the negligence of the state, which do not guarantee this education to last through indigenous people. We don't want extractivism in our territories because that is something disgusting. They are taking our rights away, and they are taking the right of life away. And that's happening in different places all over the country. So in these territories, it is where we need to warranty, for instance, taking care of Mother Earth, taking care of the planet. And in our territories, they are violating human rights. So all of that needs to be different, and we do it with our word, with our action, in different instances. And we should do it through our media, as Radio Dignidad, and the rest of the media all over Latin America. Latin America is growing in this sense, and it is becoming more and more important. Greetings. Yes. What a coincidence. You were about to say goodbye, and yes, we ran out of time, so thank you very much. We could hear you. Yes, loud and clear. So we hope, in this panel, we hope we have moved a little bit, at least 2 centimeters, some inches, the indigenous voices, just to move them into the very center of the scenario. They need to be heard. They're the guardians of nature. They have this wisdom, ancestral wisdom, and we should all learn and benefit from. I've been in this intercultural hospital, and it is a marvelous experience on related to how, through dialogue and through cooperation, this interculturality, it is an engine that it is giving traction forwards. Thank you, Miriam Vargas from Mexico. Thank you, Maria Dolores from Honduras. Thank you, Daniel Salazar from Argentina. Thank you, Leia Noriega from Chile. Good afternoon, everyone.